Hey, ladies, welcome to the Single Moms United podcast. Thank you for joining once again and reaching out and wanting to hear some additional information about being a single mom and how you can be successful at being a single mom. And thank you for joining. I'm looking at the stats and I see quite a few folks are listening, and not just to one of the podcasts, but to the series. And so thank you for that. This is not easy for me, as I mentioned before. It's definitely taken me out of my comfort zone. Hopefully, one thing you will notice is as I'm continuing to do these, they're starting to sound a little bit better around presentation, because I am working on some things. I'm working on how to edit and get all the filler words out and so forth. So as I go back and re-listen, I'm like, okay, they're coming along slowly but surely. So I encourage you to continue to download the podcast and then share with other single moms that's out there that's trying to make it. Last week, I talked about decisions and how to make the best decisions. And that comes from asking questions. The advice I gave last week was really about, moving into your apartment or a new apartment or just getting out on your own, and some questions you want to ask that company or the rental office or the landlord as it relates to their property, and not just go in with, okay, how much is the rent and when is it due? Because there are other important elements, especially as we have children, that we have to ask about to make sure we're making the right decision and to minimize stress later. Just to be honest, because if we don't ask the right questions and then we start seeing and all these different things, it's our fault because we didn't ask the right questions at the right time. And then I also put in a few other tidbits around children, and I want to continue down that path today regarding our children in school. As I listened to last week's podcast, I sounded a little harsh when I was talking about teachers and so forth, and I want to come back and clean that up a little bit and say our teachers get our utmost respect. I didn't mean, or I didn't think I sounded that bad initially as it was coming out of my mouth. But as I heard it again, I was like, oh, I don't want to send that message of being disrespectful to teachers. They have a hard job. They have a hard job, and bless their hearts, because I couldn't do it. Trying to manage behavioral issues and trying to incorporate the curriculum to make sure the children get it. So I want to publicly, verbally say I'm sorry in the manner that I presented that piece about if the teacher couldn't respond. It sounded a little aggressive, and so I wanted to apologize for that. I do want to talk about parent-teacher conferences in this episode of the podcast. Why is that important? Because many of you do have school-aged children. Many of you were able to experience life when the shutdown happened related to COVID and the children had to learn through Zoom. And some of the challenges that were with that, correct? And it should have opened your eyes of what they're being taught and how well your children are picking up on that. Now, as an older single mother, I did not have that opportunity of, having to sit through that. And I'm not sure how well I would have done. So if you were successful in making sure your child completed all their work and attended the Zoom class, God bless you. You are 8 steps ahead of me, because again, I'm not sure I could have done that. I don't. Just being honest. Kudos to you. Kudos to you. But one of the things I really want to discuss today is parent-teacher conferences and why they're important. Attending parent-teacher conferences is critical to your child's education, to their success. It also allows you to know who the teacher is, you getting acquainted with them, what they're teaching their children, right? This is your opportunity to step in that door when the invitation is extended to attend the parent teacher conferences. And here's the beauty of this, of where we are in 2022. You can text them, you can email them, and you can talk over the phone. There are several options in the manner you can interact with your child's teacher without actually having to go to the school. I think that's fabulous. Now, when my kids were growing up, I had to take off and go to the parent teacher conference. But to me, it was just that important that I have that dialogue with them and understand where my child is, where the opportunity areas are, and what I could do to help close that gap as the parent. It's great that you all have the flexibility to, you don't have to be in person now, but I do encourage you to make sure you are attending the parent teacher conferences when they come up. And I know we're going what's this, fourth quarter? I'm not sure how they break it down these days, but school will be coming to an end, in May, June, so not too much longer. And this is kind of late for this year, but definitely for next year. This is something you all can consider as you find out who your top child's teacher is, or teachers, or your children, right? I encourage you to go. If you have multiple kids, set up that time to meet with your children's teachers, because it's just that important. If you're not attending parent teacher conferences, why not? What's holding you back? Is it just you're not comfortable with it, or maybe you're busy, and why wouldn't you take that time to go and speak with your child's teacher? Why is that important? We're sending a message to our children where this invitation is extended that we can go and speak with them, and we choose not to. As a result of guess what message we're sending to the child? Do we care? Again, they're watching us as role models. Oh, well, mom's not going to talk to the teacher. Hey, listen, I'm still going to sit back and relax and just do my thing. If I pass, I do. If I don't, who cares? Because that's the message we're sending. When we refuse or choose not to attend parent teacher conferences, that's ultimately hurting our child or our children, because it says, if you don't value it, why should I? We definitely want to be more engaged with the teacher and making sure they know that this is a partnership, right? That this isn't all on them. Because in reality, we have to still own as a parent and our role in teaching our children. All of this doesn't lay on the teacher. They're not going to touch everything. They're not going to really talk about manners and values and why it's important to get where you need to be. They have specific curriculum that they provide the kids in hopes that the kids grasp it and understand it and pass it. Then they're done with your child. And if the child passes, then go on to the next grade. They're done. But guess what? They still come home to you every day. That's right, every day, and looking and thirsting for more information about, how to be successful in this world. Taking that education and saying, you know what? Why is this important? Why do I need it? And that's my next point. Did you sit down and share with your child why it's important to go to school? Why is that important? Especially now, and even when, I was in school. Hey, this is just time away from the house. Go hang out with the friends, hear a little gossip, see who's looking good as I got older. Just hang out with friends. It wasn't about you need to get this education so you can survive in life. That conversation wasn't had with me. And I'm not blaming anybody. It just wasn't had with me. So, as a result of that, do you think I had that conversation with my children? No. I just explained you need to go to school. But what does school represent? And as parents, we need to be able to explain that to our children before they start school. And so you're saying, well, my kid is in second, third grade, fourth grade. It's too late. Nope, it's not. It's not too late. You can still sit down and have that conversation with your child or your children. This is what it's going to take to survive in life. This is why you have to pay attention in class, because eventually you're going to have to do math. You're going to have to be able to effectively communicate with people, written and verbally. So English is critical. Math is critical. You really have to buckle down and understand these subjects, because otherwise you're subject to struggle in life, because math and English, both of those are your top two subjects that you have to focus on. Now, science, social studies, yeah, they're good to have a little background and do little exercises and so forth. At the end of the day, it's math and English that you have to know, and you have to know it well, or otherwise you're going to get taken advantage of. So when you go to the parent teacher conferences and you sit down with the teacher, and again, this is me talking from back in the day, but if you're on the phone or whatever, and honestly, it's best either to have the video or be in person, because you can really watch body language, which is another way of really understanding authenticity of what they're sharing with you. Okay, just my own personal thoughts. When you go, you should have a notebook, piece of paper, and a pen. On that paper, draw a line down the middle, and then on one side you talk about, one should be positive behaviors, and then the other side should be opportunities for improvement. Now, there should be a balance there. So when you go in and talk about little Johnny, for the sake of this exercise, the teacher should be able to say, Johnny's good in class, Johnny shows up on time, Johnny turns in his homework on time, he gets along well with the other kids. Okay, so you write all that down. And then secondly, opportunities for improvement. Sometimes Johnny bursts out in class when he's not called on. Why does Johnny do that? So you would want to write that down so you can have a conversation with your child. Johnny does get a little loud, little loud. He gets a little antsy. He feels like he has to be the one that has to answer all the questions. That's an opportunity for improvement. That's just an example. So you just write these down. And one thing about, as you're writing your positive behaviors down versus your opportunities, there should be a balance. There shouldn't be more on one side than the other. As a teacher, they should be able to say, here's 3 areas that I would like Johnny to improve upon. And then here's 3 areas that Johnny does well. Now you have balance. You might observe that Johnny doesn't have all of the attributes, positive behaviors per se, but there still should be a balance there. Why is that important? Because as you sit down and talk with your child about what the teacher is seeing and what she's saying about, you should be able to ask why. What's causing that? Why do you do that? And then come up with a plan. And matter of fact, both of you could potentially come up with a plan. Because remember, children are smart. They're smarter than you think they are. Coming up with a plan like, so how do you want to attack this? This is what the teacher is saying. We just want to make sure that you're successful, how to do better in class, and how to get along with the teacher. Keep in mind, some of your children may not even like their teacher. And going to that parent teacher conference is going to pull out the reason why. It could just be their body language, how they talk, and they just may feel picked on. So you also may want to have a pre-conversation with your child of how they feel about the teacher. And then you can, as you meet with the teacher, confirm or deny if what their assessment is, if it's accurate or not. Why is that important? If they're not learning or they have friction with the teacher, not saying that it's the teacher's fault, I'm not saying that it's the teacher's fault. For whatever reason, they're just not comfortable with that teacher. That's hindering their learning. That's hindering success for them. And you may have to consider, and if it's that bad, you may have to consider moving them into another class. And is that an option? So again, asking questions. You may have to meet with the principal. My child is struggling. This is what they say. This is what the teachers say. How do we mediate? How do we find a solution so I can ensure my child's getting the best education? And then when you're asking and when you're speaking with the teacher, we talk about, as I mentioned last week, how we make the best decisions. We ask questions. And some of the questions you should be willing to ask the teachers is, what do I need to know about Johnny? Or what's your perception of Johnny? And now you're not getting a yes or no answer. You're getting actual feedback, and it shouldn't be, oh, he's a good kid. Okay, not if he's bringing home C's. Not if, he's telling me he's uncomfortable in the class, something else is going on. We should want to kind of dive into that. Again, I talked about cutting into the cake last week, not just taking it what the icing looks like on the outside, but really cutting that cake and getting in there, understanding what that flavor is. Then you should ask, how can I help? What do you recommend me to do at home to help little Johnny overcome this? That question of how can I help doesn't stop with the teacher, but it also with little Johnny. How can I help? The teacher says you're struggling here. What can I do to help? Now, a thing that you should not be afraid of. You feel uncomfortable that you don't know the curriculum. That's okay. That's okay, because there's so many resources and tools out there today that you can Google to say, how can I help my child? What can I do to support it? And like I said, ladies, you are in such a better place than I was when my kids were growing up. There was no Googling. I think we had encyclopedias, and I didn't even have access to that. When my kids were going to school, I always told them, now this is one conversation I did have with them: do your best. How do you know if your child is doing their best? Are they asking questions? Are they just saying, I don't get it, and not trying to get it? Well, you're not doing your best. But if you're asking questions, it's still not kind of making sense to you, at least you're trying. There should be some illustration that they're trying. So if they bring home that C and they tried to do the best they could, you know what? I'm okay with that, because everybody learns differently. I can't stress that enough. Everybody learns differently. We can't put our children in a headlock if they're not bringing home A's, but they're trying. Sometimes some things that are just presented is just not getting absorbed. Remember, that's one of my favorite words, absorbed. Continue to encourage your children. Just do the best that you can. And if they're doing that, then ladies, continue to support and motivate and encourage. Try to find ways to really go that extra mile with their encouragement, because they are trying. And that's all we ask. And then one other thing that you might want to ask, depending on if they talk about behavioral issues, do you think they have a learning disability? Is that a question? Absolutely. Because you may not even realize your child has ADHD or dyslexia. And these are real learning disabilities. And guess what? The answer isn't always medicine. Sometimes it has to do with their diet. With my son, he drank that chocolate milk every day, packed with sugar. And guess what? He was off the wall. He was just bing bing bong bong. And then sometimes they just have to be taught differently. That, for me, I'm hands on. If you put it in a book and expect me to memorize it, it's probably not going to happen. I'm not going to deliver it the way you delivered it to me. I'm a hands on type of person. show me, walk me through it, let me, point and click, let me do it. And guess what? I'm learning, just like with this podcast. If someone was to tell me and came back and say, hey, go do a podcast, this is how you do it, and all they did was just talk to me about it, yeah, it wouldn't have gotten done. It would still be sitting on the shelf, sitting there looking like it had been for years before I took the initiative to say, I'm finally going to do this. And the only reason why I'm feeling more comfortable now is because I am doing it. I'm doing it on my own. I'm pointing and clicking and learning. I watch the video, then I'll go back and do what they did. I mimic them, all of that. That's how I'm learning. And guess what? Some of our children are the same way, but we have to uncover that so we can set them up for success. Traditional learning doesn't work for everyone. So don't beat yourself up, ladies. Sending your child to school and you're expecting them to learn. That's all groovy, gravy, and all of that. But sometimes they just have to be taught differently. And it's okay. Your child is not stupid. Your child is not ignorant. They just have to be taught differently because they absorb things differently. Please never, ever, ever call your child stupid or ignorant or belittle them in any way because that's just further damaging their own mentality. And guess what? They're going to take that damage into adulthood. Think about that. They're going to take that damage into adulthood. And that's not fair. Just because they learn differently. And it's okay to learn differently. Education is critical to long-term success. Learning and knowing basic math skills will help them from being taken advantage of. I mean, look at all the stars out there that got taken advantage of because they hired the wrong people to manage their money. Now, granted, that was big money, okay, but some basic things you should be able to know to help prevent from getting taken advantage of and being able to ask the right questions. Again, communication is extremely important, especially depending on the job you're doing. You need to be able to deliver and receive communication. That's going to go towards your success in life. People tell you something and you don't quite understand it. Guess what? And you don't have to say it in that way, but can you repeat that? I'm not quite sure I understand. Everybody's at a different level. And again, don't feel slighted or feel like you're incompetent because you don't understand. Instead of just saying, you know what, can you rephrase that? That's an appropriate term to use. Can you rephrase what you just said? I have a better or clearer understanding of what you're trying to say to me. So there's always that opportunity to improve on our communication skills. There's resources out there. If you want to learn how to be a better communicator, Google it. You're going to hear me say this a lot. Google it. Do your research. If you're tired of feeling slighted or you have to keep asking people to rephrase, build on your communication skills. It's not too late. And I think that's the message I really want to send here today. It's not too late. It's not too late to do anything or to correct stuff. It's just not. So we don't have to waddle in, oh my God, I didn't get this when I was growing up, or I wasn't taught this when I was growing up. But we don't have to stay there. Just because we weren't taught it growing up doesn't mean we can't start now, flipping the page and start doing better. Putting a new way of thinking, being motivated and encouraged. Because once you get focused, wanting to be encouraged, it means a whole lot. Again, it gets you out of the bed every day. It gets you motivated because now I am learning something new, or my mind is not in yesterday. It's gone. See you later. Bye. And in some instances, you do want to say goodbye. See ya. Deuces. Because now I'm moving in a different way, a different path. I have a different mindset. When I was growing up, I always thought I had to be in a relationship. If you're a younger single mom, you're probably thinking the same way. Gotta be in a relationship. There has to be two adults in the household. But did you know that's a myth? Relationships take energy, they take time. And if you're in a relationship that isn't a good one, this is unproductive energy and unproductive time. Now, if you're in a good relationship, then hey, go for it. Just make sure the energy is productive and your time is productive, because this is being taken away from your children. And especially if it's unproductive. All this time you putting in, want to know where he is, who he's with, and all of that. That's time you could be putting in for your children to make sure they're successful. I'm just saying. Now I'm going to leave that alone, because I know that might cause a little controversy. So we're going to keep on moving on. At the end of the day, as a parent, we have to have conversations with our children. Because remember, yesterday is gone. It's in the history or history books. The future is in front of us. So we can make these changes. It's okay that we didn't get the talk about the importance of school and education. It's time to move forward, embrace new concepts. But we have to have that conversation. We want our children or our child to be successful in this world, and they can't be without a proper education. And it starts with us. And if they see us interacting with the teacher, guess what? Some of the behavioral issues you may have seen or that the teacher may have expressed, you might see a difference. Because now they know you're talking with the teacher. They know there's a partnership. Oh, wow, mom knows Miss Jones or Mr. Jones. Mom talks to Miss Jones or Mr. Jones regularly. Gonna straighten up and fly right. As long as they think you're not involved, I have no desire to change. This works for me. I'm going to school because it's a social outlet of meeting new people and hanging out with folks and talking about people. But when they know the parent is involved, guess what? Their mindset is going to change. And that's what we need. If you feel like you didn't do well in school or you can't do it, don't allow that seed to sprout. Yesterday is gone. There's a lot of available resources out there. So, ladies, as I wrap up this week's podcast, again, thank you so much. Your time, because I know there's literally millions of other podcasts out there that you could be listening to. And I thank you for just stopping by to hear me and share my thoughts to encourage and motivate you as a single parent. This means the world to me. This, again, is helping me get out the bed every day, because now I'm remotivated. I'm re-energized. Some things happened when COVID hit, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, what now? Whereas now I feel like I have purpose again. And thank you for that. Spread the word. This is not, I want to have big numbers of people listening to my podcast, but this is big. I'm hoping to help that single mom that's feeling around in the dark like I was, and helping them to make better decisions when it comes to raising their children. That's why I would like for you to share this with your friends. It's just as easy to plug in, put the little pods or whatever it is, or put it on the speaker to hear this, for, a few minutes out of every week. And that's not asking a lot, where some of this, if they choose to adopt it, can change your life, can change your direction, getting out of reverse and putting it into drive. Because anytime we stay in reverse, that just means we're going backwards. We're going in a loop. But we're in drive. We're moving forward. We don't have to turn around. And ultimately, when your neck is turned for a long period of time, what happens? It gets sore. But when you're looking ahead, no soreness there, and you have a lot to see. Thank you. I hope you all have a fantabulous rest of your day or evening and a fantastic week. Again, thank you so much for stopping by. Take care, and we will talk again soon.